The morning I collapsed, I had been awake for 31 hours straight. I remember the exact moment I was standing at the nurse's station on the third floor of Mercy General, finishing up a double shift that had somehow bled into a triple, and the overhead lights started to blur at the edges. I thought it was just exhaustion. I thought if I splashed cold water on my face and drank another cup of the terrible break room coffee, I'd be fine. I'd always been fine before. Being fine was basically my entire personality. I took 3 steps toward the bathroom, and then there was nothing. I woke up in a hospital bed, which was deeply disorienting, because I worked in that same hospital. I was a nurse on that floor, and now I was the patient, with an IV in my arm and a monitor beeping beside me, and the first thing I registered when my eyes focused was that the room was empty. Not just quiet. Empty. No one was sitting in the chair beside me. No coat draped over the armrest, no coffee cup on the side table, no indication that anyone had rushed in when they heard I'd gone down. Just the pale afternoon light coming through the blinds, and the soft sound of the hallway outside. I lay there for a while, waiting for the fog to lift, and then I reached for my phone on the bedside tray. 11 missed calls. I felt a small rush of relief. Okay. People knew. People had tried to reach me, and then I looked at the names. 9 of the 11 were from my mother. I called her back. She picked up on the second ring, and the first thing she said was, "Claire, thank God. I've been trying to reach you for hours. Do you know how worried I've been?" I told her I was in the hospital. That I had collapsed. That the doctors were saying severe exhaustion combined with dangerously low iron and a blood pressure drop that had apparently scared my coworkers badly enough that 2 of them had cried. There was a pause. "Oh, sweetheart," my mother said. "That's awful. How are you feeling?" I said I didn't know yet. I said I was scared. I said I didn't really understand what was happening. Another pause. Longer this time. "The thing is," she said, "we're already at the airport." I didn't say anything. "Your brother's regional surfing competition is this weekend. In Hilton Head. We've had these flights booked for 2 months, you know that. And Daniel has been training so hard, Claire. This is really important to him." I knew about the competition. I had actually been the one to buy Daniel's new board, because my mother had called me 3 weeks earlier saying they were a little short, and she knew I'd want to support my brother's passion. Daniel was 24 years old and had never held a job for longer than 4 months. His passion, as far as I could tell, was making sure someone else always paid for it. "I'm sure you'll be fine," my mother said. "You're literally in a hospital. You're in the best place you could be. And your father and I will come see you as soon as we're back, I promise. It's only 5 days." My stepfather was not my father, but my mother had been calling him that for so long that correcting her felt like trying to stop a river with my hands. "Okay," I said. I didn't know what else to say. I said okay, and we hung up, and I put the phone face down on the tray and looked at the ceiling. Here is something I should tell you about my family, so that what comes next makes sense. I am 31 years old. I have worked as a registered nurse since I was 23. For the last 6 years, I have also been, in no particular order, the person who covered my mother's car insurance when my stepfather got laid off and they were just temporarily tight, the person who paid 2 months of their mortgage in 2021 when that temporary tightness stretched into something more permanent, the person who bought Daniel's first surfboard and his second surfboard and apparently his third, the person who sent money for my mother's dental work, and my stepfather's truck repair, and Daniel's competition entry fees, and the family beach trip to the Outer Banks that I did not attend because I was working. I worked a lot. I worked doubles and triples, and I picked up extra shifts, and I told myself it was because I love nursing, which was true, but it was also because there was always something. There was always a call, always a voice on the other end of the phone explaining that they were in a tough spot and they knew I'd understand. And I always did understand, and I always sent what I could, and somehow what I could kept growing, while what they needed never shrank. I want to be clear, my mother loved me. I believe that, even now. But there is a kind of love that is also a hand that takes, and I did not have the language for that yet when I was lying in that hospital bed at 23, or 25, or 28. I had it now, at 31, flat on my back with an IV in my arm, but the language had arrived about 6 years too late. The 5 days passed slowly. My coworkers were wonderful. They stopped by between shifts, brought me things from the vending machine, sat with me for 20 minutes here and there when the floor was quiet. My friend Priya, who worked in the ER, came every single day and brought me real food from the Thai place 2 blocks over and made me laugh until my chest ached. She was the one who coordinated with my doctors and made sure I understood what they were telling me, because there is something about being sick inside the place where you work that makes it very hard to be a patient. You keep slipping back into nurse mode, asking clinical questions, reading your own chart with professional detachment, and then suddenly, you're just a scared person in a hospital gown who wants someone to sit with her. Priya sat with me. My coworkers sat with me. My family did not come. I found this out from my doctor, who mentioned on the 3rd day that my emergency contact had been updated in the system per my request. I had actually updated it 8 months earlier, quietly, after a conversation with my mother that I will get to in a moment, and that therefore, the nurses had not been able to notify my family of my condition without my authorization. I hadn't authorized it. I suppose some part of me had wanted to see what would happen if I didn't. What happened was nothing. 5 days, and not one of them showed up. They called. My mother called every day, chipper and brief, telling me about Hilton Head, about how well Daniel was doing in the preliminary rounds, about the seafood they'd had for dinner, and the cute little inn they were staying at. She asked how I was feeling at the end of each call, as a kind of formality, and I said I was okay, and she said great, and we hung up. My stepfather texted once. "Feel better, kid." Daniel did not contact me at all. On the 4th night, I couldn't sleep. I was lying in the dark listening to the hospital sounds, the distant beeping, the soft footsteps in the hallway, the occasional PA announcement, and I was thinking about the last 8 months and the conversation that had made me update my emergency contact. Her name is Margaret. My mother, I mean. But she has always gone by Maggie, and for most of my childhood I called her Mom, without thinking twice about it, the way you do. The conversation happened last October, a Sunday. I remember because I was doing laundry and folding towels while we talked, and I remember thinking that the towels were a nice clean blue, and that this conversation was making them seem very far away. She had called to tell me that Daniel wanted to take a surf trip to Portugal. Not a competition, just a trip, for fun, with some friends. It would cost approximately $4,000, which neither Daniel nor my mother had, and she was wondering if I could help. I said I couldn't, not because I didn't have it. I did have it, technically, but it was my emergency fund, to the account I had been building slowly and carefully for 3 years, for exactly the kind of moment that was now happening to me in a hospital room. But because something in me had reached a limit I hadn't known existed until I bumped against it. "I can't keep doing this," I told her. "I've been covering expenses for this family for 6 years, Mom. I'm tired." What followed was one of the most clarifying conversations of my life, which is to say, it was also one of the most painful. My mother told me that I was being dramatic. That family helps family. That Daniel's passion was important, and I should be proud of him. That I made good money, and didn't have anyone depending on me, no husband. No kids, so what exactly was I saving it for? She said that last part in a tone that was light and almost joking, but the words landed like something heavy. I told her I would think about it. I did not send the money. I did update my emergency contact. So there I was, 4th night, unable to sleep, running all of this through my head. And then there was a soft knock at my door, and it opened, and a man I did not immediately recognize looked in. "Sorry," he said. Light was on. "I can come back." I sat up a little. "Who are you?" He stepped into the doorway. He was maybe 60, with gray at his temples and the kind of face that has spent a lot of time outdoors. He was holding, somewhat absurdly, a paper bag from the 24-hour diner, 3 blocks from the hospital. I knew that diner. Their pie was extraordinary. "I'm James," he said. "James Whitfield. I knew your mother a long time ago. I heard you were here, one of the nurses I know mentioned it, and I thought I'd stop by. I'm sorry, it's late. I wasn't sure when else to come." I stared at him. "You knew my mother?" "Yes." He said it simply, without elaboration, and something about the simplicity of it made me very still. "How?" I asked. He looked at the chair beside my bed, and I nodded, and he sat down and set the paper bag on the side table. "We were married," he said, "before she met your stepfather. A long time before you were born, mostly. It's a long story. I looked at him. I looked at his face. I have my mother's coloring her red hair, her freckles, but I have always had eyes that didn't match anyone in the family, a particular gray-green that nobody could account for. My stepfather's eyes were brown. My mother's were blue. James Whitfield's eyes were gray-green. "How long have you been coming here?" I asked. "Since the first night," he said. "I wasn't sure if you'd want to see me." I didn't want to push, but I kept thinking about you being here alone, so I just came and sat in the hallway for a while. Then one of the night nurses took pity on me and let me sit in here. You were asleep. I didn't know what to say. I looked at this man, this stranger who was not quite a stranger, sitting in the chair beside my bed with a paper bag of diner food in the middle of the night, and I felt something in my chest that I can only describe as a door opening in a room I had kept locked for a very long time. "I don't understand," I said. "Why? Why would you come?" He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Because you're my daughter, Claire, and I know your mother never told you that, and I know this is not the right time or place. But I've been trying to figure out the right time and place for about 31 years, and you were lying in a hospital alone, so I decided the time was now. I want to tell you that I handled this gracefully. I want to tell you I said something wise and calm. What I actually did was start crying in a way I hadn't cried since I was maybe 7 years old, that ugly, complete kind of crying, where you completely lose the ability to care what you look like. James Whitfield, to his credit, did not try to hug me or shush me or make it stop. He just stayed in the chair and let me cry. And after a while, he opened the paper bag and put a slice of cherry pie on the tray table. And I ate it while still crying. Because it turns out, cherry pie from a good diner at midnight in a hospital room is not the worst thing in the world. We talked until almost 4 in the morning. He told me that he and my mother had been high school sweethearts, that they'd married young and been happy for a while and then not happy, and that they'd separated before she'd known she was pregnant, that she had contacted him when she found out, and he had wanted to be involved, and she had told him no, that she had met my stepfather and decided it was cleaner this way, that he had respected her decision because he was 26 and didn't know how to fight it, and that he had regretted that every year since. He told me he had followed my life at a distance. Not in a creepy way, there was no surveillance, no showing up at school, plays just the occasional update from a mutual friend who knew them both, enough to know that I had become a nurse, that I worked at Mercy General, that I was apparently the kind of person who held things together. He said that last part with something that sounded like pride. I asked him why he hadn't reached out before. He said, "I was afraid you'd say no, and I didn't think I had the right. Your mother made her choice." I told him I was 31 years old and could make my own choices. He said he knew that. He said that was why he was here. My mother arrived on day 7. She came in the morning, breezy and tan from Hilton Head, wearing sunglasses she didn't bother to push up when she walked into my room. She kissed my cheek and said I looked better, which I did, and told me about the drive back, which had been long but fine. Daniel had placed 3rd in his division, which she reported with the particular satisfaction of someone announcing a Nobel Prize. She asked me if they'd been taking good care of me. I said yes. She asked if I'd been eating. I said yes. She asked if I'd started thinking about when I could go back to work because she imagined being stuck in bed was making me restless. I said I needed to talk to her about something. She sat down. She smoothed her skirt. She arranged her face into the expression she used for serious conversations, which was attentive but slightly braced, like she was waiting to hear how much something was going to cost. "James Whitfield came to see me," I said. The expression did not change, but something behind it did. Her eyes went very still in a way that I had never noticed before, but that I understood now. "How did he?" she started. "He's been coming every night since I was admitted," I said. "I talked to the nurses. He was here every night, Mom." "While you were in Hilton Head." She opened her mouth and closed it again. "He told me," I said. "He told me everything." What followed was not a clean, cinematic confrontation. My mother did not weep and confess and beg forgiveness. She did what she always did, which was to manage. She shifted, she minimized, she explained, she offered context. She said it was complicated. She said I had to understand what things were like then. She said James Whitfield was not a stable person, which I did not believe, based on the man who had sat in a hospital chair at midnight and let me cry without making it about him. She said she had done what she thought was best. I let her talk. I had learned, in 6 years of managing this family's emotions alongside their finances, that sometimes you just have to let someone say what they need to say so that you can say what you need to say. When she finished, I told her that I was not angry about James, not in the way she was expecting, not in the explosive way that would let her play the wounded mother. I was something quieter than angry. I was done. I told her I was not going to continue paying the expenses I had been paying. Not the insurance, not the supplemental mortgage payments, not Daniel's equipment and entry fees and trips. I told her this was not a punishment. I told her I had been carrying weight that wasn't mine to carry, and I needed to put it down. I told her that I loved her and that I would like to have a relationship with her, but that it needed to be a different kind of relationship than the one we'd had. She told me I was being cruel. She told me that family doesn't abandon family. She told me that Daniel was going to be devastated. I told her that Daniel was 24 and would survive finding out that money has limits. I said it gently. I meant it gently. Then I told her that I would like her to leave so I could rest, and after a long moment where I could see her calculating whether to push, she left. I lay back against the pillow. I breathed. Outside the window, the late morning light was doing that particular late summer thing where it comes in gold and heavy, and the room was warm, and I was tired in a way that felt different from the exhaustion that had put me here cleaner, like the tired you feel at the end of something rather than the middle. I texted James. I said thank you for the cherry pie. I said I'd like to keep talking if that was okay. I said I wasn't sure exactly what this looked like or how fast it moved, but I thought I'd like to find out. He texted back one word. Always. I was discharged 2 days later. Priya drove me home. We stopped at the Thai place on the way and ate in the parking lot because neither of us wanted to wait, and she told me about a terrible date she'd had while I was in the hospital, and I told her about James, and she said, in her very direct way, "So your whole family is a mess, and you've also just found your actual father. How are you doing?" I thought about it. "I think I'm okay," I said. Like actually okay, not my default response okay. She nodded. "Good. Because you're going on 6 weeks of reduced schedule whether you like it or not, and I have already talked to Sandra about covering your shifts." I did not argue. I did not say I was fine and could go back sooner. I ate my pad, CEU in the parking lot, and let my best friend take care of the logistics, and felt, for the first time in a very long time, the odd relief of not being the person who holds everything together. My mother and I have spoken twice since I was discharged. Brief calls, careful on both sides, the kind of conversations where you're both figuring out what this new version of things looks like. She has not asked me for money. I don't know if that's because she understood something or because she's waiting. I am trying to assume the better of those two options, while also knowing that hope is not a financial plan. Daniel called once to tell me he thought I was being selfish. I told him I hoped his surfing went well this season and ended the call. James and I have had coffee 4 times. We went to the diner once, the one with the cherry pie, and he told me about his life, his work, the house he has, upstate with a garden that he's clearly very proud of. He's a quiet man, careful. He doesn't try to rush anything or claim more than he's earned. I am learning what it looks like when someone just shows up and stays, without needing you to pay for it or perform gratitude or collapse into their version of the story. I'm still learning a lot of things. I'm back at work now. 3/4 schedule, which Priya enforced so strictly that I'm almost impressed. I walk past the nurse's station where I went down and I feel something complicated. Not fear exactly, more like the feeling of recognizing a place where something important happened, the way you feel passing a house you used to live in. Something was built in that moment, even though what I felt at the time was only falling. There are people in my life who showed up when I was at the bottom of something. Some of them I expected. Some of them were strangers sitting in hospital chairs at midnight with cherry pie. None of them were the people who had the best claim on the title. I used to think that family was the people you were assigned, and obligation was the price of being loved. I am slowly, carefully, in the way that things heal when you stop pretending they're fine. I am slowly unlearning that. I hope you'll unlearn it too, if you need to. And if you're currently the person who holds everything together for everyone, who works the triple shifts and sends the money and says, "Okay, when you mean please come, I see you." I really do. And I want to tell you that putting it down is not the same as giving up. Sometimes putting it down is the only way to find out who was actually going to help you carry it. Sometimes that person is sitting in a hallway at midnight, trying to figure out how to knock.